What if everything you think makes you happy is actually making you suffer? The German philosopher Schopenhauer discovered something so terrifying about human existence that it changed how we understand happiness forever. But first, let's understand what he meant by will. And trust me, it's not what you're thinking. Imagine you're at a fancy restaurant enjoying your favorite meal. The food is perfect, the atmosphere is just right, and you feel completely satisfied. But within hours, you're hungry again. Or think about that new phone you desperately wanted. The moment you got it, you felt amazing. But how long did that feeling last? A week? Maybe a month? And then you started eyeing the newer model. Schopenhauer noticed this endless cycle of wanting, getting, and wanting again in his own life. One day, while walking through the streets of 19th century Frankfurt, he watched a group of wealthy merchants rushing to their next business deal, their faces twisted with worry despite their riches. Next to them, a beggar sat content with a piece of bread. This scene hit him like a lightning bolt. What if our desires aren't really our own? What if there's something bigger, something almost alien, controlling all of us? He called this force will, not your everyday will to do things, but a blind, endless, hungry force that runs through everything in the universe. It's the same force that makes a plant break through concrete to reach sunlight, that drives animals to hunt and survive, and that keeps us humans forever chasing the next big thing, the next achievement, the next relationship, never truly satisfied. But here's where it gets really unsettling. Schopenhauer realized that this will doesn't care about our happiness. In fact, it actively works against it. Think about it. The moment you achieve something you've been dying to get instead of lasting happiness, you feel empty. And then the cycle starts again. It's like we're all characters in a video game, thinking we're making our own choices, but actually following a pre-written script of endless wanting. This discovery was so shocking that it influenced everything from modern psychology to movies like The Matrix. But before we dive into how deep this rabbit hole goes, let's look at what led Schopenhauer to this terrifying conclusion about human existence, and why it might be more relevant today than ever before. Let's dive into how Schopenhauer came to this dark revelation about human existence. At just 25 years old, he was already seeing something that most people spend their entire lives trying to ignore. Living in a wealthy merchant family, he had everything that society said should make him happy: money, education, status. But he noticed something strange. The richer and more successful people became, the more miserable they seemed. During his time in Dresden, he watched his father, a successful businessman, work himself to death chasing more wealth despite already being rich. His mother, a popular novelist, kept pursuing fame and social status, but grew increasingly bitter with each success. Even his own experience was proof. Every academic achievement left him feeling emptier than before. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source: his study of Buddhist texts. While Europe was caught up in the idea of progress and achievement, these ancient writings described life as inherently full of suffering. At first, Schopenhauer thought this was too pessimistic, but then he started paying attention to a pattern that nobody else seemed to notice. He saw how a businessman would work 80-hour weeks to buy a luxury house, only to immediately start worrying about a bigger one. How lovers would chase each other desperately, then feel trapped once they got together. How artists would dream of recognition, then feel hollow when they achieved it. It wasn't just that people were making bad choices. Something deeper was wrong with the very structure of existence. This hit Schopenhauer particularly hard during the Dresden cholera epidemic of 1813. While watching the rich and poor alike struggle against death, he realized that all our desires, from basic survival to the highest achievements, were just different expressions of the same meaningless force. The will to live, to succeed, to be happy wasn't leading anyone to actual happiness. Instead, it was like a cosmic joke, pushing us to keep running on a treadmill that goes nowhere. The stakes became clear to him. Either humanity was stuck in an endless cycle of meaningless suffering, or there had to be a way to understand and perhaps even break free from this will. And that's where Schopenhauer's investigation led him to an even more disturbing discovery about the nature of our existence. One that explains why you feel empty, even when you get everything you want. The will, according to Schopenhauer, isn't just some abstract force. It's literally everywhere, controlling everything, all the time. Think about what happened the last time you were really hungry. Your stomach started growling. Your mood got worse, and suddenly getting food became the only thing that mattered. That wasn't really you making decisions. That was the will taking over. But here's where it gets really interesting. Schopenhauer noticed this same pattern in everything. Take a tree growing through concrete. It doesn't decide to break through. It just does. Or think about how single-minded a cat becomes when hunting a mouse. That same blind force is pushing through all of us, all the time. He proved this with a simple observation that seems obvious, but changes everything. Why do we always want more? Jeff Bezos is worth billions, but still launches new business ventures. Taylor Swift has more awards than she can count, but keeps pushing for more. Even that YouTuber with millions of subscribers is obsessed with getting more views. The will doesn't care about satisfaction. It just wants more, always more. Modern science has actually backed this up in a way Schopenhauer never could have imagined. Brain scans show that the pleasure centers in our brains light up more when we're wanting something than when we actually get it. That's why scrolling through social media feels so addictive. It's an endless stream of things to want. The will has gone digital. Schopenhauer saw this force most clearly in human relationships. Have you ever wondered why the hottest couples often seem miserable together? According to him, the will tricks us into feeling attraction not for our happiness, but just to keep the species going. Once that's achieved, it couldn't care less about our happiness. That's why passionate love so often turns into bored routine or bitter fighting. This force even explains why rich kids often end up unhappy despite having everything. The will doesn't care about their comfort. It needs struggle to express itself. That's why they often create drama or problems where none exist. The will must be satisfied, even if it means making yourself miserable. But the most disturbing example Schopenhauer found was in our own minds. Ever notice how you can't just decide to be happy? Or how telling someone with anxiety to just calm down never works? That's because our conscious thoughts are just the tip of the iceberg. The will is the massive dark force lurking underneath, pulling all the strings. And this leads us to an even more unsettling realization about our supposed free will, one that made Schopenhauer question whether any of our choices are really our own at all. Every day you make thousands of decisions. What to eat, what to wear, who to talk to. You probably think you're making these choices freely, but Schopenhauer discovered something that flips this whole idea on its head. What if every single choice you make was already decided by the will, and your reasons for making them are just stories you tell yourself afterward? Here's a modern example that would have fascinated Schopenhauer. Scientists did an experiment where they could predict what button a person would press up to 7 seconds before the person themselves knew they had made the decision. Your brain had already decided, but you still felt like you made a conscious choice. This is exactly what Schopenhauer was talking about. We're like passengers thinking we're driving the car. Think about the last time you fell in love. You probably had a list of reasons why that person was perfect for you. But then the relationship ended, and suddenly you had a different list of why they were totally wrong. According to Schopenhauer, the will made you fall in love first, and your rational mind just came up with reasons to justify it later. Or look at your career choices. You might think you chose your job because it matches your interests and skills, but Schopenhauer would say the will pushed you toward it through unconscious drives. Maybe you saw your parents struggle with money as a kid, or you're secretly trying to prove something to someone who doubted you. The rational reasons came after. Even your shopping habits reveal this truth. Have you ever bought something expensive and then came up with all sorts of reasons why you needed it? That's your rational mind trying to justify what the will already made you do. This is why sales and marketing work so well. They don't target your logical brain, they speak directly to the will. Social media is perhaps the perfect modern proof of Schopenhauer's theory. You don't consciously decide to check Instagram every few minutes. There's a deeper force pulling you to do it. You might say it's for staying connected or being informed, but those are just excuses. The will wants stimulation, and it gets what it wants. But here's where it gets really dark. Even knowing all this doesn't help you break free. You can understand perfectly how dating apps manipulate your desires, and still find yourself swiping for hours. You can know exactly why you stress eat, and still find yourself reaching for comfort food when anxious. That's because understanding the will doesn't weaken its power. It just makes you more aware of your own lack of control. And this awareness leads us to the most disturbing part of Schopenhauer's philosophy, the endless cycle of suffering that we're all trapped in, whether we realize it or not. Every culture and religion has tried to explain why humans suffer, but Schopenhauer's explanation is uniquely terrifying. We suffer because satisfaction is impossible by design. Think of it like a video game that's programmed to be unbeatable, not because you're playing it wrong, but because that's how the game is built. Here's how the cycle works. Right now, there's probably something you really want. Maybe a promotion, a relationship, or just more subscribers. The will makes you believe that once you get it, you'll finally be happy. But Schopenhauer noticed something crucial. Every single time you achieve a goal, one of two things happens. Either you immediately get bored and find something new to want, or you start feeling anxious about losing what you just got. Look at influencers for a perfect example. They hit 100,000 subscribers, feel happy for about a day, then immediately start stressing about hitting 1 million. They reach 1 million, and now they're worried about staying relevant. There's literally no subscriber count that would make them permanently satisfied. That's exactly what Schopenhauer was talking about. Or take relationships. Ever notice how some people jump from relationship to relationship, always thinking the next one will be perfect? According to Schopenhauer, they're trapped in the will's cycle. The will creates intense attraction to ensure reproduction, then immediately starts making you notice flaws in your partner once that's achieved. That's why passionate love so often turns into boredom or contempt. It was never meant to last. Money shows this pattern perfectly. Studies show lottery winners return to their baseline happiness level within a year. Schopenhauer would say, of course, because the will doesn't care about your happiness, it just wants you to keep striving. That's why billionaires keep working instead of retiring to a beach. The will won't let them rest. Even your phone is part of this cycle. The will creates a craving for stimulation. Your phone provides it through notifications and social media. But instead of satisfaction, you just need more and more stimulation. That's why you can spend hours scrolling and end up feeling worse than before. But the most insidious part is how the will creates what Schopenhauer called borrowed suffering. We suffer not just from our current problems, but from anxiety about future problems that might never happen. You finally get that dream job, but instead of enjoying it, you start worrying about getting fired. You find a great relationship, but spend your time worrying about potential breakups. This endless cycle of desire, brief satisfaction, and new desire is what Schopenhauer saw as the root of all suffering. But just when it seems completely hopeless, he discovered something incredible, a possible way out of this trap. If the will is an unbreakable force that controls everything, is there any hope for us? Schopenhauer found an unexpected answer in art, music, and meditation, but his solution isn't what you might expect. It's not about becoming happier. It's about stepping outside the will's game entirely. Think about the last time you were completely absorbed in something beautiful, maybe a stunning sunset, a powerful piece of music, or a great movie. In that moment, something unique happens. You temporarily stop wanting things. You're not thinking about your problems, your future, or your past. You're just there. Schopenhauer realized this was the key. These rare moments are the only times we break free from the will's endless demands. This is why billionaires often become art collectors. It's not just about showing off wealth. Art provides the one thing money can't buy: moments of freedom from wanting more. When you're truly absorbed in a painting, the will's voice goes quiet. Same with music. That's why a great song can make you forget all your problems, even if just for a few minutes. Schopenhauer found that Buddhist monks had discovered this same truth through meditation. When you observe your thoughts without getting caught up in them, you're actually watching the will at work. You start to see how it creates cravings, fears, and desires. And in seeing this, you gain a bit of freedom from its control. But here's the clever part of his solution. Instead of fighting the will, which is impossible, you simply step aside and watch it. It's like being in a hurricane. You can't stop the storm, but you can find the quiet eye at its center. This is why Schopenhauer spent hours listening to classical music and visiting art galleries. He wasn't escaping reality. He was finding moments of clear sight within it. Modern research actually backs this up. Studies show that activities like art appreciation and meditation can lower stress hormones and break addictive thought patterns. They don't make the will go away, but they create space between you and its demands. This is also why therapy can help, not by eliminating suffering, but by helping you see its mechanics. But Schopenhauer's most radical suggestion was this: what if instead of chasing happiness, which the will makes impossible anyway, we aimed for something different? Moments of clarity and freedom from wanting. This isn't giving up. It's playing a different game entirely. This leads us to perhaps the most surprising part of Schopenhauer's philosophy: how understanding these terrifying truths about existence can actually make your life better, not worse. Understanding that an endless, hungry will controls everything might seem like the most depressing realization possible, but Schopenhauer found something unexpected. There's a strange kind of freedom in knowing this truth. Once you see how the will operates, life becomes less frustrating, not more. Think about it like this: knowing that your phone is designed to be addictive actually makes it easier to put down. Understanding that the will creates relationship drama helps you stay calmer when it happens. Realizing that satisfaction is temporary by design helps you stop blaming yourself when achievements don't make you permanently happy. Schopenhauer himself found peace in this understanding. Instead of fighting against the will's nature, he learned to watch it like a scientist observing a natural phenomenon. When he felt strong desires or fears, he would think, "Ah, there's the will again," instead of getting caught up in them. This didn't make the feelings go away, but it made them easier to handle. This is why Schopenhauer's philosophy, despite being called pessimistic, actually offers a unique kind of hope. Not the false hope of permanent happiness, but the real freedom of understanding what we're dealing with. It's like finally learning the rules of a game you've been playing blindfolded your whole life. So what can you do with this terrifying knowledge? Schopenhauer suggests finding those moments in art, music, nature, or meditation, where you can step outside the will's endless demands, not to escape life, but to see it more clearly. And when you feel that familiar pull of wanting more, remember, it's not you, it's just the will doing what it does. These are Schopenhauer's insights about the will, a force more powerful than any individual, yet one that can be understood and, in small ways, transcended. By seeing it clearly, we might not escape its power entirely, but we can find moments of peace within its endless storm. Because in the end, the most terrifying philosophy turned out to offer the most realistic path to freedom, not from suffering itself, but from the dotazione burden of not understanding why we suffer.